2:3. Experience and history teach us this, that nations and governments have never learned a thing from history, or acted in accordance with anything they might have learned from it. Lectures on the Philosophy of World History. Introduction. So to be independent of public opinion is the first formal condition of achieving anything great or rational, either in life or science. Such achievement will assuredly be recognized in time by public opinion, which will duly transform it into one of its own prejudices. The Philosophy of Right, 318. As a form of universal family, civil society has the right and duty to supervise and influence education, for education molds a child's ability to become a member of society. In this instance, society's right is of far more importance than the arbitrary and contingent wishes of the parents, especially where this education is to be completed not by the parents but by others. The Philosophy of Right, 239. We Germans would be Hegelians even if Hegel had never existed, insofar as, unlike the Mediterraneans, we instinctively attribute a deeper meaning and greater value to becoming and development rather than to what is. We scarcely believe in the justification of the concept of being. Nietzsche, Gay Science, Aphorism 357. How will your free, if not anarchic nature accept the Spanish torture of the method within which I confine spirit? Letter 167 to von Sinclair, draft, mid-October 1810. Insofar as philosophy may claim to be of independent interest, indeed even of the highest interest, its teacher must openly admit to everyone that nowhere can it be of much value except to a few. Letter 152 to Van Geert, Nuremberg, December 16, 1809. Only within the confines of the state does man have a rational existence. The aim of all education is to make sure that the individual ceases to remain purely subjective and attains an objective existence within the state. He owes his entire existence to the state. Whatever worth and spiritual reality he has are only as a result of the state. Lectures on the Philosophy of World History. Introduction. In history we are concerned with what has been and what is. In philosophy, on the other hand, we are concerned not with what belongs exclusively to the past or even the future, but with what is, both now and eternally. That is, with reason. Lectures on the Philosophy of World History. Introduction. The ethical order of society reached its goal and truth in the spirit that passed away within it, that is, the individual. However, this legal entity, a person, has its substance and fulfillment apart from the ethical order. The process of world culture and belief disposes of such an abstraction as a mere person, and by the completion of this process of estrangement, by attaining the extremity of abstraction, the self of spirit finds the substance become first the universal will, and finally its own possession. At this point, knowledge at last appears to have become entirely adequate to the truth which is its goal, for its truth is this knowledge itself. Every opposition between the two sides has been eliminated, yet not for us, who are merely outlining the process, not merely implicitly, but actually for self-consciousness itself. Thus, self-consciousness has mastered the opposition which consciousness itself involves. This opposition is the conflict between certainty of self and the object. But now the object for it is the certainty of self, which is knowledge. Just as the certainty of itself as such no longer has ends of its own, is no longer conditioned and determinate, but is pure knowledge. The Phenomenology of Mind, Spirit, 6. The universal mind manifests itself in art as intuition and imagery. In religion it manifests itself as feeling and representative thinking, and in philosophy it occurs as pure freedom of thought. In world history the universal mind manifests itself as the actuality of mind in its entirety of internationality and externality. World history is a court of judgment, because in its absolute universality, the particular, that is, the forms of worship, society, and national minds in all the different actualities, is present only as ideal, and the movement of mind here is the manifestation of this. World history is not the verdict of might, that is, of a blind destiny fulfilling itself in abstract and non-rational inevitability. On the contrary, because mind is implicitly and actually reason, and reason is explicit to itself in mind as knowledge, world history is the necessary development, out of the freedom of mind, of the moments of reason, and thus of the self-consciousness and freedom of mind. The history of mind is its own action. Mind is only what it does, and its action makes itself the object of its own consciousness. Through history, its action gains consciousness of itself as mind. It apprehends itself in its interpretation of itself to itself. This apprehension is its being and its principle, and the fulfillment of this apprehension at one stage is simultaneously the rejection of that stage and its elevation to a higher stage. The philosophy of right. World history. There are pages of Hegel which have the same effect in the realm of thought as the sonnets of Mallarmé have in the realm of poetry. They are vehicles of evocation and of vague sentimental nuances, nothing more. This does not belittle their value, it may even increase it. Yet verbal narcotics and hypnotic formulations should not be imposed on us as truths. Giovanni Papini, 24 Minds. When the Jesuits and Catholic missionaries first set out to teach the Indians European culture and manners, they went among the tribes and laid down daily routines for them as if they were schoolchildren, and no matter how idle the natives were, they duly obeyed. The missionaries also built storehouses and showed the Indians how to use them so that they could provide for their future needs. The missionaries chose the best methods of civilizing their charges, treating them much as if they were children. I even recall that one missionary used to ring a bell at midnight to remind them to perform their marital duties, because otherwise it would never have occurred to them to do so. These rules initially had the highly beneficial effect of arousing their needs, these being the origin of all human activity. Lectures on the Philosophy of World History. Introduction. Appendix 1. Chronology of Hegel's life. 1770. Born August 27th in Stuttgart. 1781. Has severe bout of fever which also strikes his entire family, resulting in the death of his mother. 1788. Studies theology at Tübingen University, where he meets Hölderlin and Schelling. 1793. After graduating from Tübingen, moves to Bern in Switzerland to take up post as private tutor. 1796. Hölderlin secures him a tutoring post in Frankfurt. 1799. Death of Hegel's father leaves him with a small private income. 1801. With the aid of Schelling, appointed as Privatdozent, junior lecturer, at Jena University. 1806. Hegel finishes The Phenomenology of Mind as Napoleon wins Battle of Jena. 1807. Becomes editor of the Bamberger Zeitung. 1808. Becomes headmaster of gymnasium in Nuremberg. 1811. Marries Marie von Tucher. 1812. Publishes first part of The Science of Logic, completed 4 years later. 1817. Publishes The Encyclopedia of the Philosophical Sciences in outline. 1818. Becomes professor of philosophy at University of Berlin. 1821. Publishes The Philosophy of Right. 1830. Deeply upset by riots in Berlin. Appointed rector of the University of Berlin. 1831. Dies of cholera in Berlin on November 14th. Chronology of Hegel's era. 1770. Birth of Hölderlin, Beethoven, and Wordsworth. 1776. American colonies achieve independence from Great Britain. Birth of the United States of America. 1786. Death of Frederick the Great. 1789. French Revolution. 1793. French Revolution develops into the Terror under Robespierre. 1806. Napoleon wins Battle of Jena. 1813. Birth of Wagner. 1813. Napoleon defeated at Battle of Waterloo and consequently exiled to St. Helena. British consolidate empire over whole of India. 1819. Simon Bolivar launches his campaign to rid South America of Spanish colonial rule. 1821. Faraday discovers principle of the electric motor. 1825. Birth of the railway, Stockton to Darlington route opened by Stephenson. 1829. British annex whole of Australian subcontinent. 1830. Greece achieves independence from Ottoman Empire. 1831. Darwin sets sail on HMS Beagle for Galapagos Islands. 1832. Death of Goethe in Weimar. Chronology of significant philosophical dates. 6th century BC. The beginning of Western philosophy with Thales of Miletus. End of 6th century BC. Death of Pythagoras. 399 BC. Socrates sentenced to death in Athens. Circa 387 BC, Plato founds the Academy in Athens, the first university. 335 BC, Aristotle founds the Lyceum in Athens, a rival school to the Academy. 324 AD. Emperor Constantine moves capital of Roman Empire to Byzantium. 400 AD. St. Augustine writes his Confessions, philosophy absorbed into Christian theology. 410 AD. Sack of Rome by Visigoths heralds opening of Dark Ages. 529 AD. Closure of Academy in Athens by Emperor Justinian marks end of Hellenic thought. Mid-13th century. Thomas Aquinas writes his Commentaries on Aristotle, era of scholasticism. 1453. Fall of Byzantium to Turks, end of Byzantine Empire. 1492. Columbus reaches America. Renaissance in Florence and revival of interest in Greek learning. 1543. Copernicus publishes On the Revolution of the Celestial Orbs, proving mathematically that the Earth revolves around the Sun. 1633. Galileo forced by Church to recant heliocentric theory of the universe. 1641. Descartes publishes his Meditations, the start of modern philosophy. 1677. Death of Spinoza allows publication of his Ethics. 1687. Newton publishes Principia, introducing concept of gravity. 1689. Locke publishes Essay Concerning Human Understanding, start of empiricism. 1710. Berkeley publishes Principles of Human Knowledge, advancing empiricism to new extremes. 1716. Death of Leibniz. 1739 to 1740. Hume publishes Treatise of Human Nature, taking empiricism to its logical limits. 1781. Kant, awakened from his dogmatic slumbers by Hume, publishes Critique of Pure Reason. Great era of German metaphysics begins. 1807. Hegel publishes The Phenomenology of Mind, high point of German metaphysics. 1818. Schopenhauer publishes The World as Will and Representation, introducing Indian philosophy into German metaphysics. 1889. Nietzsche, having declared God is dead, succumbs to madness in Turin. 1921. Wittgenstein publishes Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, claiming the final solution to the problems of philosophy. 1920s. Vienna Circle propounds logical positivism. 1927. Heidegger publishes Being and Time, heralding split between analytical and continental philosophy. 1943. Sartre publishes Being and Nothingness, advancing Heidegger's thought and instigating existentialism. 1953. Posthumous publication of Wittgenstein's Philosophical Investigations. High era of linguistic analysis. This concludes the reading of Hegel in 90 Minutes by Paul Strathern. Copyright 1997 by Paul Strathern. This book was read by Robert Whitfield. This unabridged recording was published by arrangement with Ivan R.D., publisher, and was produced in 2004 by Blackstone Audiobooks Incorporated, which holds the copyright. Neither this recording nor any portion of it may be reproduced or used for any purpose without prior written authorization from Blackstone Audiobooks. If you would like to obtain a complete catalogue of our titles or our monthly update telling you about new releases and our new collection of books on CD and MP3, write to Blackstone Audiobooks, P.O. Box 969, Ashland, Oregon, zip code 97520, or call 1-800-SAY-BOOK. That's 1-800-729-2665. You may also obtain the same information from our award-winning website. Our address, all one word, is www.blackstoneaudio.com. Thank you.